Hey guys, it's Vit from Flash Pro Tuning. We finally released the infamous eDyno to the public, and I want to make a quick tutorial video about as much as I can fit into 10 minutes since that's the limit on this screen capture application. First thing I want to touch on when using the eDyno after you've purchased a subscription is what to do with data logs. I've got one of Supa's FPDL files. Unfortunately, you can't upload an FPDL to the eDyno. You have to load up the file, and now that I've got it open, you can see he's got a third gear pull. We have to export this file to a CSV using Flash Pro Manager. And one thing when exporting data logs is you want to do just the third gear pull. It looks like he's already got it starting right at the beginning of the third gear pull, and it's fine to not be at full throttle right before the beginning, but like this extra space here, I like to trim that right about at the end of the pull when I let go of the throttle. And you can do that by right clicking and doing set new end. So when you export a pull, this is about what you want it to look like. Just a third gear pull to get as much of the junk out of the data log as possible. And since the eDyno has a nifty feature to graph boost, if you want that graphed on a supercharged or turbo car, you want to go to the map by double clicking on that in the sensors window and changing the units to this. When you change it to that, it will export out in PSI instead of the kPa values that we see now. So if we hit OK and I scroll through, you can see how much boost he's running. So now I'll do data log export, and I'll export it out as a CSV. And if you look, now we've got a CSV that we can import into eDyno. Go ahead and go to flashprotuning.com, launch up the eDyno, and here we go. Choose File, go to the Export, and pick our data log. I will leave the trim enabled, and he does have an FG2. So go ahead and upload it. Voila. Just takes a second to upload it. And just expand it out to see all the options we have on that graph. All new data logs that are uploaded will upload minimized so as not to take up as much screen real estate. And right away you can actually run a data log graph. But first I'll change the weight. He had 420 in his request, so that was the weight of all the passengers in the car. The vehicle weight doesn't usually have to be modified unless you've done weight reduction, stuff like that. These two values together will give us the total weight. And since he's turbo, he had a target air fuel of 11.8. And we'll just hit graph. And that's what it looks like with the default values when we upload a data log. And right now, see, he's running 0 degree cam, his air fuel ratio, his graph. One nifty feature, go ahead and close this. One nifty feature of graphing boosted cars is you have this map option when we expand out the window. If you click this, and since we exported out as PSI and regraph, you get an extra graph down here that shows boost. That's an option you really don't want to use for NA Civics because it'll just graph the kilopascals and it'll just show you're at full throttle. So it's fairly worthless on anything but a boosted car. Now, the other thing that we want to look at is we're using the default smoothing parameters, and in his data log he had a lot of wheel spin in this area, and you can tell in the graph it spiked. I'll leave this window open for now, and I can actually make it smaller and drag it down here. This is the default graphing smoothing parameters. I've added a bunch of presets that you can use, and this will apply it to every single data log that you've uploaded and that you have open. So it's a great way if you have like 4 or 5 data logs open, you want to change the smoothing on all of them to get a better looking graph, because something like this isn't optimal, is not obviously that accurate. And let's do for his, do very high. We'll go through and voila, it changed all these. It also changes the default for all other uploaded graphs. So if we were to upload another one using the upload form, it would actually upload it with this smoothing as well. But let's regraph it now, and you can tell, wow, quite a difference. No more huge spike in the power graph. This may not be as accurate as actually doing a third gear pull without any kind of wheel spin, but it's certainly better than looking at something like this. And another feature to look at is once we have the smoothing applied, you see how it gets jittery. It's kind of noise basically at the end of the graph. I'll leave this one open as well. And we have this trim feature that we can actually trim a couple hundred RPMs from the peak to get us a more complete, smooth looking graph. So I got rid of this portion, but it looks like we need to do a little bit more. And there we go, we have a nice looking graph. No more massive spikes in it, and probably decently accurate. I mean, we did have to use a lot of smoothing to get rid of that wheel spin, so it's only going to be so accurate with that. But hey, this kind of demonstrates what the eDyno can do. Close these out. And just cover a couple other points. We do have the SAE correction. The lookup value actually uses two other sites to get this information. So if this gets laggy or doesn't respond sometime, those sites may be just acting up. But for instance, for my zip code, if I do a lookup, it's working pretty good. And we also have the air fuel correction. And this is approximate, but it gives you kind of a decent guesstimate about what you need to correct to hit your target air fuel that's here. And of course, you can also use these sliders on your own to apply your own smoothing. That works as well. You don't have to use our presets, but we do have these available to make it quick and easy since they are a global preset for every log that's uploaded. And you can also set a timestamp of, for instance, you took a log at a certain time. You want to make a timestamp of when you took it. And this is kind of a nifty feature because we do have the option to actually do a file save session, and we'll save this session as supa. Boom, saved. And this will actually, for instance, if we do a reset, we'll reset the application to its initially loaded state. Say I just rerun the eDyno website and I want to pull up an old state. I'll just go File, Load Session, all my sessions that I've run, hit Import, and back it comes. And the cool thing here is we can make changes, add more data logs. Say we'll add his data log again. It brings back all the smoothing parameters that were used, timestamp, weight, everything's back exactly like you had it in that session. And let's see, we'll graph this one with just defaults just to see what the comparison looks like. See what a difference the smoothing made on an overlapping graph. And shortcut for closing the most recently opened graph window is Escape, and that will close that one. On Windows PCs, you can use Alt-W to close a data log, and that will actually close it and delete that log. But we'll put it back in. And if we do File Save Session, it remembers the name of the last loaded session or the last saved session that we did. And if you do OK, it'll actually overwrite that last session that you had with that name. So for instance, you can keep working on a previous session and keep saving it as the same name. Instead of creating other sessions with the same name, you can create the same one. So you have two logs now. And if we import it, voila. And that's it for this demo. If you have any questions, feel free to ask on the forums or in Flash Pro chat. Or of course, if you have an eDyno subscription, you can also email our support. We'd be more than happy to help you with any of your questions. Vit out.